Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Soul Land 2 Peerless Tang Men based on novel. So let's start. Yuhao. Can I call you that? Shujojo asked Huo Yuhao with a smile from where she was sitting in the main seat. Huo Yuhao nodded and replied, "Of course you can, Your Highness. How's the situation at the front right now?" Shujojo sighed softly and said, "The situation is not good. The Sun Moon Empire's defensive strength is unknown to us. They were too sudden with their attack, and paved the way using Class 9 stationary soul cannon shells. They managed to blow up the Mingdo mountain range and create a path. Then, we thought that they were going all out to attack the Star Luo Empire, and quickly pulled all our resources here to resist their onslaught. We even called for reinforcements. But who knew that they had no intention of attacking after some time? It was only then that we realized that things had gone south. When we tried to probe by attacking, the Sun Moon Empire only mounted a defense at the Mingdo mountain range. Their real target has now been verified. They are going for the Heavenly Soul Empire. We tried to make a breakthrough from this side and help the Heavenly Soul Empire with the burden by targeting the interior of the Sun Moon Empire. However, their defense is simply too strong. We suffered huge losses and weren't able to make any advances." When she finished speaking, Shujojo couldn't help but close her eyes in pain. The image of the light of the death god flashing was still etched in her mind. She and many of the Soul Masters from the Star Luo Empire were still traumatized by the terrifying strike they had witnessed. Huo Yuhao asked, "What about the Heavenly Soul Empire? How are they now?" Shujojo shook her head and said, "I can only confirm that the Sun Moon Empire is attacking them now. We have already sent reinforcements from the Douling Empire over. Furthermore, we've also deployed 2 Soul Engineer Legions to alleviate the pressure they are facing. We are better able to cope with the burden if both empires are at the front lines resisting the enemy." Huo Yuhao was shocked and asked, "Hasn't there been any accurate information?" It had been a few days since he had left the army and returned to Shrek Academy. However, the Star Luo Empire had yet to receive accurate information from the Heavenly Soul Empire. Not only did this have to do with their backward communication soul tools, it also had something to do with the intense war that was going on at the Heavenly Soul Empire. It was easy to imagine the Heavenly Soul Empire being under a ferocious onslaught by the Sun Moon Empire. Shujojo furrowed her brow and said, "We've already sent out 10 people, but we've yet to get any information. We even sent a titled Doluor, and I believe we'll find out some news soon." "The White Tiger Duke is here," a guard outside shouted. Everyone subconsciously stood up. The curtains to the tent were opened, and the White Tiger Duke walked in. There were 2 others with him. Dai Yueheng and Dai Luoli. The White Tiger's white armor had the same black tiger patterns as his martial soul. It wasn't clear what material his armor was made of. Huo Yuhao judged it should be made of some special alloy, as soul power seemed to circulate through it. Was it a suit of close combat armor? In terms of rank, it should be a Class 7 soul tool. Although this armor made the White Tiger Duke appear very suave, Huo Yuhao felt pity for him. As a marshal of the Star Luo Empire, he could only don a Class 7 soul tool. It showed how far behind the Star Luo Empire was in terms of soul tools. Huo Yuhao was sizing up the White Tiger Duke right now, and the White Tiger Duke was naturally sizing him up too. This guy must be leading the team from Shrek Academy, given that he's sitting beside Princess Jojo. When Princess Jojo sent someone to call the White Tiger Duke, he was only informed that representatives from Shrek Academy had arrived. However, he wasn't informed who they were. Right now, he was disappointed when he saw that they were all youngsters, even though he didn't express it openly. If they were the strong ones from Shrek Academy, the situation might still be able to be reversed. However, what can these youngsters do? "Yuhao, so it's you," Dai Yueheng said delightfully. However, he immediately shut his mouth after he finished speaking. He was in a camp, and even in front of his father. The White Tiger Duke turned his head to look at Dai Yueheng. However, he didn't reprimand him. Instead, he returned his attention to Huo Yuhao. Even though Huo Yuhao tried his best to calm himself down, he couldn't completely maintain his composure. This person was his father, and the person he had once hated. However, after a few interactions, he didn't exact his revenge. Instead, he even saved him twice. He had once met the White Tiger Duke during the Elite Continental Advanced Soul Master Academy tournament. It was just that he was still too weak then, and wasn't noticed by the White Tiger Duke yet. It was his first time meeting Dai Hao directly and face-to-face. What no one noticed was that Dai Luoli's mouth was slightly open right now, and his eyes were filled with disbelief. He was flabbergasted as he looked at Huo Yuhao. Dai Luoli immediately recognized Huo Yuhao. How could he not? In addition, he was much more astonished compared to Dai Yueheng. He was much more astonished. Elder brother, what games are you playing? Shrek Academy, so you're actually from Shrek Academy. After Huo Yuhao left without bidding goodbye that day, Dai Luoli returned to the camp and was anxious when Huo Yuhao didn't return. After that, he was reassigned to be by the White Tiger Duke's side. In the past, Dai Hao wouldn't have done that, because he thought that Dai Luoli was better off living a simpler life free of risks, if he wasn't fit enough to inherit the title of the White Tiger Duke. However, the appearance of Dai Luoli's mysterious master caused the mutation and awakening of his martial soul. His cultivation increased by leaps and bounds as a result. Although he was already a bit old, Dai Luoli still had potential. The White Tiger Duke had to be unselfish and nurture his own outstanding son. He arranged for Dai Luoli to be brought to his side and let him learn from Dai Yueheng temporarily. As he cultivated, he could learn military skills. He was also given permission to attend some military meetings, which was regarded as training. At this point, Huo Yuhao's attention was all on the White Tiger Duke, and he didn't focus on his younger brother. He took the initiative to greet the White Tiger Duke along with Shujojo. Shujojo smiled and said, "Uncle Dai, let me introduce you. This is the #1 talent from the younger generation of Shrek Academy, the one who established the Spirit Pagoda, and the youngest member of the Sea Gods Pavilion, Huo Yuhao. I believe you've heard of his name before." Her introduction was very detailed, and Dai Hao was immediately shocked. He had naturally heard Huo Yuhao's name many times before. When the Spirit Pagoda was first established and spirits first appeared, he had once asked Dai Yueheng whether he knew Huo Yuhao. Dai Yueheng recounted his experiences with Huo Yuhao. To Dai Yueheng, Huo Yuhao was a legend. He had become a member of the Sea Gods Pavilion before he was even 20. What did the Sea Gods Pavilion represent? It was the highest level of Shrek Academy. At this moment, he no longer underestimated Huo Yuhao because of his age. In the continent, who would dare to underestimate a member of the Sea Gods Pavilion? Moreover, he was also the founder of the Spirit Pagoda. It's rumored that he discovered spirits. This young man can no longer be described with the word genius. He's more like a freak. Shrek Academy didn't send anyone strong, but his arrival definitely signifies how importantly Shrek Academy regards this war. Dai Yueheng had once told the White Tiger Duke that Huo Yuhao was possibly the future heir to the master of the Sea Gods Pavilion. In an empire, his current position was like a crown prince. Huo Yuhao was no longer the rookie he was before. He concealed his emotions very well, and wore a smile as he said, "Greetings to you, Duke." Her Highness was too kind with her words. I didn't establish the Spirit Pagoda. It was jointly founded by the Academy and the Three Empires, as well as the savage beasts of the Great Star Do Forest. Shujojo smiled and said, "Don't stand on ceremony anymore. Without the spirits that you researched, how could we have established the Spirit Pagoda? I heard that the Spirit Pagoda is like a holy ground to soul masters now. Its future potential is unlimited. It's a pity, if this war hadn't appeared, I would have followed all of you to the headquarters of the Spirit Pagoda." Shujojo's words deepened the White Tiger Duke's impression of Huo Yuhao. He nodded at Huo Yuhao and said, "You are indeed a hero. I've heard Dai Yueheng mention you before. Welcome to the Northwestern Field Army." As he spoke, he extended his right hand towards Huo Yuhao. Huo Yuhao raised his hand to shake it. The white tiger duke's palm was broad, warm, and filled with strength. When their hands came into contact with one another, Huo Yuhao was almost distracted. When he started to recall everything, he always asked his mother where his father was. He yearned for his father's care, and wished that his father was there to protect him and his mother. However, he had never received the love of his father before. This was his first time coming into such close contact with the white tiger duke in a place other than a battlefield. He suddenly turned aggressive, and almost blurted out to the white tiger duke, "Where were you when I was young?" However, he was Huo Yuhao. His immense spiritual power restrained his urges. He just appeared a bit emotional from the look in his eyes. The white tiger duke felt a little weird, too. Huo Yuhao's hand was very cold. This wasn't supposed to happen to a strong soul master. Soul masters should be able to regulate their own temperature very well. Furthermore, Huo Yuhao's eyes seemed to be filled with some kind of special emotion. He felt as if he had met Huo Yuhao before. For a moment, he appeared to sense some kind of ill intent from that emotion. However, he subconsciously felt that Huo Yuhao could be fully trusted. As for where this feeling came from, he could only attribute it to his sixth sense. After this momentary handshake, they both immediately regained their composures. The white tiger duke gestured to Huo Yuhao. "You are our guest. Please take a seat." Shujiujiu took the initiative to offer her seat to Dai Hao. This was a show of respect to the white tiger duke, and also a show of apology for her earlier misjudgment. Naturally, a guard promptly added another seat beside the white tiger duke's. Huo Yuhao was to the white tiger duke's left, while Shujiujiu was to his right. Dai Yueheng and Dai Luoli didn't have any seats. The white tiger duke's house rules were very strict. In the military, he was even stricter towards his own sons. Dai Luoli was standing closer to Huo Yuhao, and never stopped looking at him. Huo Yuhao had already calmed down, and it was only now that he remembered to greet his own younger brother. Their spiritual powers connected, and he asked Dai Luoli to calm down. After this period of training, Dai Luoli's cultivation and mentality had developed significantly, but it was only now that he suppressed his own curiosity and calmed himself. Dai Hao turned his head at Huo Yuhao and said, "It's been tough on all of you. What advice does Shrek Academy have?" Shujiujiu rushed to pass the letter over to Dai Hao. Huo Yuhao said, "This is the letter that Elder Xian wrote to you. We are only here to be under your command and fight against the enemies of the Empire. According to Elder Xian, our main responsibilities are to be scouts." Dai Hao nodded. He opened the letter and read it carefully. Elder Xian didn't write too much down. First, he expressed Shrek Academy's support for the Star Luo Empire. After this, he explained that Huo Yuhao and the others came from the Tang sect, and they were all talents that came from Shrek Academy. He hoped that they could help the Star Luo Empire resist the Sun Moon Empire at the front lines. Among all of them, he specifically mentioned how good Huo Yuhao was in terms of surveillance skills. He also honestly told the White Tiger Duke that Huo Yuhao was the only one who managed to complete the ultimate soldier plan in Shrek Academy. Dai Yueheng would have already told Dai Hao about this. There was nothing he had to hide. After seeing this letter, Dai Hao couldn't help but turn his attention towards Huo Yuhao again. Even if Shujiujiu's praise sounded rather unbelievable, it was hardly unlikely that Elder Xian would exaggerate his words. From his words, Elder Xian's recommendation of Huo Yuhao was even better than Shujiujiu's. The White Tiger Duke had no choice but to take note of him now. All of you came on time. Let's not delay any further. Talking about reconnaissance, the White Tiger Duke laughed bitterly as he shook his head. The reason why we've been led on a wild goose chase by the Sun Moon Empire is because our reconnaissance efforts have been completely sealed. We are completely unaware of the situation at the Mingdo mountain range. The aerial surveillance sole tools of the Sun Moon Empire have completely blocked off all our surveillance. They have even broken the connection that we have with our friendly troops at the front. After hearing the White Tiger Duke's words, Huo Yuhao was also shocked. He could imagine that they couldn't receive any useful information, but he didn't expect them to lose contact with their own friendly forces. This was a little unbelievable. It seemed like he had underestimated the Sun-Moon Empire's strength in terms of aerial surveillance Sol tools. The White Tiger Duke said, "There are a few active tactical units from the Sun-Moon Empire along the borders, formed by high-tier Sol engineers. Although I don't know how they managed to do so, I'm certain that all the information gathered from their aerial surveillance Sol tools is transmitted to them immediately. They rely on these aerial surveillance Sol tools to locate our scouts before killing them. We've become blind because of this. The situation now is very awkward. We aren't able to carry out a direct assault. The Sun-Moon Empire has installed an extremely strong Sol tool at the Mingdo mountain range. It's too destructive. I'm afraid that we'll be unable to attack them at all. In terms of surveillance, we're also very far behind. It seems like we are monitoring them, but we actually have no idea what they are doing. We are at a very disadvantageous situation in this war. From our judgment, the Sun-Moon Empire is likely to be aiming at the Heavenly Sol Empire. It's been a few days, but we've yet to receive any accurate news from the Heavenly Sol Empire. I just know that our guess is right. Now that we've no information, we are completely at a disadvantage in this war." After listening to the White Tiger Duke's words, all the Sol Masters from the Star Luo Empire and Princess Jojo looked very grim. Earlier, when Shu Jojo was recounting everything to Huo Yuhao, she still withheld some information. However, the White Tiger Duke did not withhold anything. After he finished speaking, the White Tiger Duke was silent for a moment before he said, "This is the current situation. Regretting our decision to neglect Sol tools is meaningless now. We can only do our best to deal with this war as it is. Elder Xian recommends your surveillance skills highly. What I would like to know is how good you are in this area." He was very straightforward, just like a military leader should be. After pondering for a moment, he said, "We are unable to guarantee how good we are. We still need to understand the situation on the Sun-Moon Empire's side. I need to monitor things first before I can decide on anything. Although the Sun-Moon Empire controls the sky, their control is not absolute. Their high-altitude surveillance Sol tools can only cover up to 5,000 meters." The Big Dipper Doluo creased his brow and said, "My friend, 5,000 meters is already the highest humans can reach. Even for Ultimate Doluo, they wouldn't be confident of flying at a height of 5,000 meters for an extended period of time. It's even more impossible for us." The Big Dipper Doluo wasn't very pleased with the way Huo Yuhao described things. He felt that Huo Yuhao was being very boastful with his words. Huo Yuhao nodded very seriously and said, "You're right. Generally speaking, Title Doluo can only fly up to 5,000 meters. In addition, they can only stay at this height for a short time, as it will place too much of a burden on their bodies. However, 5,000 meters is also the limit for the Sun-Moon Empire's Sol tools. At that height, there are only 1 or 2 Sol tools that they can use. However, these Sol tools can't see everything. If a Title Doluo can send me to a height of 5,000 meters, I'll be able to glide my way near the Mingdo mountain range." The Big Dipper Doluo was moved and asked, "Do you mean that you can avoid the surveillance Sol tools 5,000 meters in the air?" Huo Yuhao was impressed. No wonder he's the leader of the number 1 Sol Master Legion in the Star Luo Empire. He managed to catch the gist of what I'm saying immediately. He nodded and replied, "Yes, I'm confident. More accurately speaking, I'm confident above 2,000 meters. Higher than 3,000 meters, I'm even more confident. Between 2 and 5,000 meters is where I'm trying to glide. Although I'm unable to fly 5,000 meters in the air, I'm still able to protect myself." The temperature of the air fell quickly the further one went from the ground. In addition, the temperature dropped extremely quickly after a height of 1,000 meters. At a height of 5,000 meters, the temperature of the air would reach negative 150 degrees Celsius. Even Title Doluo wouldn't be able to survive at such a temperature. If Title Doluo couldn't control themselves during their descent, they were in danger of falling to their deaths. However, Huo Yuhao wasn't affected by such low temperatures. The thin air was the most lethal. At that height, humans couldn't breathe, and thus he couldn't stay there for too long. The Big Dipper Doluo revealed a thoughtful look. The White Tiger Duke looked at Huo Yuhao and asked, "Wouldn't that be dangerous?" At that height, even the White Tiger Duke had never flown to that height before. It was simply too dangerous. If he faced any wind current and was blown to a higher altitude, he would face the extremely low temperatures, and might fall to his death if his soul power was overly drained. Huo Yuhao smiled and said, "The low temperature isn't a problem for me. My martial soul is ice type, so I'm stronger in terms of resisting the cold. I also have a way of dealing with the thin air. As long as it's not for too long, I'll be fine." The White Tiger Duke pressed, "However, even if you successfully sneak into the back end of the enemy's territories, how will you be able to return?" He didn't mention the internal part of the enemy's territories, because there were bound to be many surveillance soul tools at the Mingdo mountain range. No matter how great Huo Yuhao's concealment abilities were, he was bound to be discovered if he descended directly into the Mingdo mountain range. That would be seeking his own death. It was why he could only fly directly across. Huo Yuhao said, "I believe in my own survival abilities. Returning should be easier." He couldn't hide from thermal detectors if he only used imitation. However, things were different if he used his spiritual interference domain. Furthermore, he could also control his body temperature using ultimate ice. Only some soul tools that relied on sound waves might be able to grasp his location, but that wouldn't be specific, either. It also meant that Huo Yuhao had to deal with the attacks his enemies would unleash on him after he was discovered if he snuck around within the Mingdo mountain range and tried to return. However, these attacks couldn't be aimed properly, they were only domain-type attacks. Under such circumstances, it would depend on how well he could dodge and how fast he could escape. There was some element of danger. However, to the rest, he was the only one who could survive under such circumstances. "Wait a minute, you forgot an important problem," a crisp voice spoke up. When Huo Yuhao turned his head and realized that the person speaking was Tang Wutong. Tang Wutong creased her brow slightly and looked at Huo Yuhao seriously. She said, "You can indeed rise to an altitude of 5,000 meters with the help of a titled Doluo. However, have you ever considered the height of the Mingdo mountain range? Although I don't know the detailed statistics, I can estimate that the highest peaks of the Mingdo mountain range are at least 2,000 meters. If soul tools are installed above these mountain peaks, you won't be able to successfully hide from them unless you're able to maintain an altitude of 5,000 meters. The White Tiger Duke, Princess Jojo, and the rest of the Star Luo Empire's soul masters concurred with her words. Given how the Sun Moon Empire placed so much attention on blocking information from the Star Luo Empire, they couldn't possibly fail to place any soul tools on the mountain peaks. In addition, the area covered by these surveillance soul tools was bound to be greater than most normal surveillance soul tools. Huo Yuhao only smiled and replied, "Of course I've considered this problem. First, most aerial surveillance soul tools can only reach an altitude of 1,000 meters. Furthermore, most of them will be aimed towards the ground. Even if there are ground-based ones pointed towards the sky, they wouldn't be able to cover an altitude greater than 1,000 meters, because of the wind currents and all types of volatile elements. The aerial surveillance soul tools installed on these mountain peaks are bound to be affected by these conditions, too. It is the same reason such ordinary soul tools can't be successfully installed 2,000 meters in the air. The surveillance soul tools that they have installed at these mountain peaks must be ground-based ones facing the sky. The Sun Moon Empire has high-altitude surveillance soul tools. Such soul tools can carry out surveillance at an altitude of 3,000 meters. However, they can only face the ground. At the same time, such surveillance soul tools are still incomplete and are not precise. There's no way they can detect my concealed self. The only threat to me is the ground-based surveillance soul tools facing the sky. So, let's look at the situation of these surveillance soul tools. Right now, we know that the Sun Moon Empire's ground-based surveillance soul tools are the most effective. They are able to scan up to an altitude of 1,500 meters and detect what's in the air. Thermal, airflow and oscillation detectors can only reach up to 500 meters. After 500 meters, their effectiveness will drop significantly. They won't be able to reach beyond 1,000 meters. These numbers have been meticulously calculated. This means that I won't be discovered if I'm at least 3,000 meters above the Mingdo mountain range. This is even under the condition that I'm directly above the highest mountain peak of the Mingdo mountain range, when in fact, I'll intentionally find a lower mountain peak to perform my surveillance. After Huo Yuhao mentioned this series of numbers, all the soul masters from the Star Luo Empire couldn't help but feel embarrassed. Their combined knowledge of the Sun Moon Empire's surveillance soul tools couldn't compare to Huo Yuhao's. Huo Yuhao continued, "This is why I'll be fine as long as I don't glide below an altitude of 3,000 meters, after I'm sent 5,000 meters into the air. Following that, I can start performing my surveillance." He squinted as he spoke until here, and a layer of dim golden light shone from his eyes. Following this, he unleashed a spiritual web that engulfed the entire tent. All the soul masters from the Star Luo Empire were shocked. However, they soon realized that this was Huo Yuhao's spiritual power. They wanted to resist it subconsciously, but they let it go after they saw the White Tiger Duke's signal. Huo Yuhao's spiritual power soon linked up with everyone in the tent. After this, his spiritual intent was revealed and quickly spread across the entire tent. All his surveillance results were shared with everyone present through his spiritual sharing. Instantly, a detailed stereoscopic image of everything within a 5-kilometer radius from Huo Yuhao filled the minds of everyone. The White Tiger Duke was stunned. Princess Jojo and the Big Dipper Doluo were also shocked. All the soul masters from the Star Luo Empire were instantly rooted to the ground in amazement. So was Tang Wutong. His spiritual power was immense. He was just sitting there, but he could actually use such a method to share everything in his head. He was much more magical than the Sun Moon Empire's surveillance soul tools. Everyone was in awe. Huo Yuhao said, "In terms of unidirectional detection, I'm confident of reaching a distance of 5 kilometers. This is why I'll be able to see what's happening in the Mingdo mountain range from an altitude of 3,000 meters, and I'm sure I'll be accurate. However, I won't be able to obtain much information if I'm just surveilling it once. This is because I need to ensure that I'm always in my best condition, in terms of soul and spiritual power. I always restrict myself to only 15 minutes of surveillance every time. I'm able to keep myself 3,000 meters in the air for roughly 15 minutes. After my surveillance, I can also try my best to return without catching the attention of the enemy's soul tools. If I am successful, I'll go back a few more times, and I'll be able to recall everything." The look in the White Tiger Duke's eyes returned to normal. He suddenly felt that Huo Yuhao's spiritual detection sharing was very familiar. Does this person have something to do with the person who saved me before? Dai Hao didn't think that Huo Yuhao was that person. That was because that person was one of the strongest people on the continent right now. The second time that person saved him, the strength that he had demonstrated was simply too great. The Big Dipper Doluo was a little agitated as he stood up. He punched his right fist against his left palm. "Great. Young man, I'm sorry for doubting you earlier. Your arrival has brought hope for us. If you can study the enemy's formations, we'll be in a much better situation. We'll at least be able to find out their flaws. I understand that you want to glide from an altitude of 5,000 meters, because you want to conserve your soul power, am I right?" Huo Yuhao nodded. Even given his current cultivation, he couldn't last more than an hour at an altitude of 3,000 meters. In this 1 hour, he would use only a quarter of the time to carry out surveillance. He also still had to ensure that he was in a state to fight the enemy at any time. He didn't reveal something. If he was detected by a powerful soul master, soul engineer, or a soul tool specifically designed to detect soul power or faced any abnormalities, he was bound to come across danger. He didn't reveal this because he didn't want his partners to be too worried. "It's too dangerous by yourself. Let me follow you," Yi Gai immediately said. Huo Yuhao was a little stunned as he looked at her. In his heart, he had hoped that Tang Wutong would be the one who said this. Yi Gai's eyes met his, and she turned a bit red. "With someone helping you, at least you'll be more successful in escaping." Huo Yuhao shook his head and said, "No, this isn't a fight. With an additional person, I'll need to take care of my partner when I conceal myself. It's better for me to escape alone. I'll go myself. It's much more effective. Yi Gai looked a little disappointed, but she didn't persist. She only nodded before sitting back down again. Princess Jojo was a little agitated. Yuhao, if you succeed, you'll contribute the most to the entire Star Luo Empire. Tell me whatever you want. As long as I can do it, I'll do my best to satisfy you. Everyone from the Tang sect revealed a slight smile on their faces. They didn't think that Huo Yuhao would make any demands, given that he was the founder of the Spirit Pagoda and a member of the Sea Gods Pavilion. However, something surprising happened. Huo Yuhao nodded gently and said, "If possible, I hope that I'll be able to earn merits, just like a Star Luo Empire soldier after this reconnaissance mission, and attain a military ranking, as well as become knighted." What? Everyone from the Tang sect was shocked when he said this. Only Tang Wutong was not as surprised. After all, she didn't know Huo Yuhao that well. How is this possible? Including Shu Jiujiu, many of them who were present thought this way. He was a member of the Sea Gods Pavilion, his status was unrivaled. He possessed great influence in the world of soul masters. If he obtained a knighthood and earned merits as a soldier, wouldn't he be bound to the Star Luo Empire? The Star Luo Empire would be taking advantage of him then. Why would Huo Yuhao do something like this? Shu Jiujiu looked very surprised, but she was also very intelligent. She immediately nodded without any hesitation and said, "No problem. Given your abilities and cultivation, I can promise you the position of a viscount right now on behalf of my elder brother. Your position will also be inherited by your future descendants." A viscount was the second least prestigious position in the nobility, but it was still considered very prestigious, especially since his descendants could inherit his position. Their lives would be worry-free. Furthermore, this was because Shu Jiujiu was a princess. If the Star Luo Empire's emperor was here, he might promise him even more. By deepening their ties with Huo Yuhao, the empire was building its relationship with the Spirit Pagoda. At the same time, the empire was also building its relationship with Shrek Academy. This was highly advantageous for the empire. Shu Sanxi's expression was very serious and he said, "Yuhao, you must consider this very carefully. You aren't just representing yourself right now. This video will end here.